Welcome to the Morning Serve, brought to you by Canadian Club. I'm Nick McArdle. John Millman is here. There's a stack to talk about today. The fourth round continues. We're going to dive straight into it. The Maddie Inglis fairy tale. So into the fourth round, Naomi Osaka pulls out. It's a great opportunity for Maddie. Can this basically launch, well, not launch her career, but inject her career?
I think so, and I think it helps when you're making fourth round. It means you're making a lot of prize money. I think she's already up to $480,000, which is a lot of money, but there's also been a lot of money that Maddie herself has invested into her career. And what that injection of cash means is that she can further invest. So that means investing in a coach, investing in strength and conditioning coaches, and just be able to play a more flexible schedule. Sometimes you're factoring in where is maybe the more economical place to go and play rather than what suits my game. So I think it's going to really help it. It also helps the points that you're getting starting off the year, always helps by banking some points early.
So almost no matter what happens here, it's going to be fascinating to watch Maddie Inglis over the next 12 months against a really tough opponent in this one, in Iga Swiatek. Does Iga Swiatek have any weakness that Maddie might be able to target?
I think at times, and it sounds ridiculous because she's obviously a multi-Grand Slam winner, but I think at times it's fair to say that she can get a little bit flustered, a little bit tense. She's got very, very high standards, and when things aren't necessarily working out to that perfection and those high standards that she has, she can get a little bit rattled. The forehand's the more damaging side, but it is also the side that can break down under a little bit of pressure. So I'm sure Maddie will be targeting that area and hopefully maintaining a really high level of consistency, hoping that Iga maybe gets a little bit frustrated.
If she does get a bit frustrated, gets a bit rattled, then how much does a very pro-Aussie crowd play into that as well? Is that something that Iga Swiatek has to deal with?
Yeah, obviously Iga's very, very experienced, but it's got to help Maddie, right, by having a very vocal Australian crowd in your corner. And I think Maddie will soak it up. I think she'll enjoy the occasion. I'm really looking forward to it, and I don't think she's without a chance. She's got winning form, which I really like. She won 3 matches to get through qualifying. She won a couple of matches in main draw before getting that walkover against Naomi Osaka. I like it. Winning form's good form.
So that begs the question, though. So you come through qualifying, you do have a bit of rhythm, you're on a bit of a roll, and then you get a walkover. So is that rest good, or can that be a bit of a disruptor as well?
I like it for her. You got to remember, the day before she was meant to play Naomi Osaka, she actually played a mixed doubles with her fiance Jason Kubler. So she's had so much tennis. I actually really like the fact that she can use the extra day to really look after the body, get yourself fired up. She's had some really long matches. That match against Kim Burrell was so physical. And then the match against Laura Sigemund actually went to a deciding set tiebreaker. So I think that over the course of the 2 weeks, she's hit plenty of balls. I think that the day off will only help her.
Let's talk about Jannik Sinner. You cast your mind back to Saturday. It's stinking hot here. It really was. And he was in all sorts of trouble on Rod Laver Arena. Until the roof closed, and then everything changed. So is that saved his tournament?
Yeah, I think it has. And I think Jannik would probably say the same. You heard the dialogue that he was having with his coach's box. It was super fascinating to just see how much of the hurt locker he was in. The body was breaking down. Now, the roof came and closed at the right time. And he's one of the best indoor hardcourt players to have ever played the game. So managed to turn the tide in his favour. He got lucky, but he'll take that.
You've been up against it physically throughout your career. You know what recovery takes. Does that have any sort of scarring effect as we move into the second week of the tournament for Jannik Sinner?
I think he'll want to get the next match or round done quite easily, but we've got a bit of evidence to suggest that he can recover. We only have to cast our minds back to that match at the Australian Open against Holger Rune, where he was in all sorts. He was visibly distressed at the change of ends. He was shaking. The heat was definitely a factor. He did manage to recover, and he went on to go and win the Grand Slam. So I think that he'll have to work hard to recover. He's got some of the best team and support around him. I don't think it's going to be a factor, but he will want to get through this next round comfortably.
That won't be a factor, what happened on Saturday, if you're saying that. But what about if it's hot again, and that seed now is planted in his mind? Everyone sees it. Everyone knows it. He knows it as well. If it happens again, How much of an issue is that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of scar tissue that lingers there. And also the fact that his opponents know, okay, I'm going to try to make this as physical as possible because it's hot outside. And obviously, at the moment, he's not handling those conditions perfectly.
So is that what Darderi does in this next round? You know, no matter, it's not going to be that same sort of temperature again, but it's not going to be cool either. Does he work him over? Is that the secret to Darderi's success, potentially, is against his fellow Italian?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that he'll try to make it as physical as possible, as early in that. Really test out the legs of Jannik. I did take a sneak look at the temperatures moving forward, and it's Tuesday that's the really big hot one. Now, he avoids that day, and I think he'll be very happy that he does.
Just in terms of a technical, regulation, rules, that sort of thing, should they have just closed the roofs on the show courts, on the courts with roofs on them, on Saturday morning and said that we're just going to play all day like this?
Yeah, and this is a question that's been posed quite a lot. No, they shouldn't have. This is an outdoor hard court tournament first and foremost, so you have to play in those conditions that the tournament is meant to be played in, and the roofs are the last resort, both in rain and in sun.
All right. Novak Djokovic. So everyone's talking about Alcaraz and Sinner. Novak Djokovic is just moving not quietly through, but certainly comfortably through. Hasn't dropped a set so far. How's he stacking up? I know it's difficult to say, but how's he stacking up against the two big guys?
I'm actually quite impressed with Novak Djokovic at this year's Australian Open. I think he has flown under the radar because we didn't get to see him throughout the summer. He pulled out of Adelaide, came in here, apparently a little bit underdone, but I actually commentated his first round match and I was so impressed. He is serving incredibly well, and that's a recipe for success against Sinner and Alcaraz, because you have to look after your service games, otherwise you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I think he's playing with a little bit of freedom out there. We remember a few years ago when he actually won the Australian Open and he tore his oblique muscle and he had to play really aggressive. I think that that's what he's going to have to do if he does face one of those top two players.
So really the second week for him is where the rubber hits the road, and you think back to last year and he tore the hamstring against Zverev. And I guess that's maybe always in the back of his mind as well, the physicality that comes with the second week of a Grand Slam tournament. But
he would know this, and I think that's why everything points in good signs, the fact that he's been so efficient in his opening rounds. He knows this so well. I think he's been locked in to try to get it done and get his matches done quickly in the opening rounds to just store a bit of fuel in the tank for what could be a difficult second week.
What do you reckon got under his skin against Botic van der Zandschulp in that third round match? Because he was a bit sort of...
He was on edge.
Yeah, he was aggro.
Yeah, he was on edge. We've seen this before again with Novak. Every now and again, I think he thinks he needs... Well, I think he thrives on a little bit of adversity. And sometimes that's, getting a bit hot under the collar to bring out that little bit of a spark. And I feel as if he almost uses that to motivate him. At least as being an observer, that's what I can pick up.
So this next encounter against Jakub Mensik has the master apprentice feel about it, doesn't it? So Djokovic being the 24-time Grand Slam champion, 10 times that he's won here, and Mensik, one of this next wave coming through. Is this clearly a big moment for Mensik, but is it the moment that he takes his next step?
Well, yeah, you touched on it. Jakub Mensik is this next wave coming through, and this next wave of Chechen male players. We've seen them dominate so much on the female side, but Yuri Lehechka, Thomas Mahac, who went down to Lorenzo Musetti, and now Jakub Mensik. He would be feeling pretty good about this matchup. Remember, in Miami last year, he actually went and beat Novak Djokovic, and it's always good when you're playing against the legends of the game to have a win underneath your belt. So, look, I think he'd be going on the court with that confidence of youth, but also the confidence because he knows that he's done it before against one of the greatest to have played the game.
All right, let's talk about a few of the guys who are maybe sneaking under the radar. Ben Shelton, he's been serving out of his skin, yet to drop a set. How much of a threat is he?
Yeah, we talk about flying under the radar. Well, Ben Shelton's at sea level because I think that he is playing incredibly well. And he's one of the few players that can actually bring this power game off the back of that left-handed serve, which is ridiculous, and take it to those top two players because he's got firepower. And we know to beat an Alcaraz, to beat a Jannik Sinner, you need to have firepower. And Ben Shelton, the gunslinger, he has it in spades.
Casper is another player who knows what it takes to get to a Grand Slam decider. Hasn't won one, but he's been there on numerous occasions. He's sitting waiting for the call from his wife, who's expecting on February 1st their little girl. Casper Ruud, can he just work his way through here and maybe feature in the last couple of days?
Another player that does not get the credit he deserves. A 3-time Grand Slam finalist. There's not too many people in the draw that can claim to be just that. Definitely, and I think he is also one that's playing with a bit of freedom at this year's Australian Open, given the fact that he's on standby to get on a plane and get home to the birth of his first child. Hopefully, his first child can wait that little bit longer because he's playing some unreal tennis. Definitely someone to watch for.
And Lorenzo Musetti is the last one that I'd want to get your thoughts on. So he is the 5th seed in this tournament, and a lot of people might even be saying Lorenzo who, but it's all quality from Lorenzo Musetti.
I'll tell you what, to the tennis lover, you're not saying Lorenzo, who jumped onto the scene some years ago at a French Open where he had Novak Djokovic on absolute toast. He's just developed nicely into this unbelievable player from Italy. Probably flies under the radar a little bit because his countryman, Jannik Sinner, is so good. But he's tricky. He's so good off the back of the ground. He has that beautiful one-hander. He's a real shot maker. He constructs points, as you'd expect from someone who's grown up on clay. And as the 5th seed, he's someone that shouldn't be flying underneath the radar. He's come in with some really good form. Made the final in Hong Kong, which is a lead up to this event. Lost to Alexander Bublik. He is a very, very good player, and he also beat an in-form Thomas Mahach in his last match.
Wait, have you got a thought as to why a couple of these guys do fly under the radar a little bit? Because, you know, Ben Shelton he's box office. When he walks onto the court, like, we should be talking about him, but maybe he's not being talked about as much. Lorenzo Musetti, same thing. You got a thought?
I think it's just because the last 2 years we've seen 2 players dominate men's tennis. Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz. They've set the bar so high. This next tier of players are often overlooked, and I think everyone, though, is waiting on the edge of the seat for one of these guys to really break through.
All right, given all of that, it's Canadian club crush time. Who out of those players we mentioned, Mensik, Ben Shelton, Casper Ruud, Lorenzo Musetti, who's going to break through?
For me, it has to be Ben Shelton out of those names, just because of the firepower that this guy has. He can get through service games, and he's electric from the back of the court. It's box office Ben for me.
John, thank you very much. Thank you for your company. There's a lot of questions to be answered as we head into the second week of the Australian Open here in Melbourne. That is the Morning Serve, brought to you by Canadian Club.
Wide World of Sports is your home of the Australian Open. From highlights of the best players, every magic Aussie moment, and the best expert analysis.
We'll have every nail-biting, heartwarming and edge-of-your-seat point covered. Subscribing to Wide World of Sports on YouTube is a must for any tennis fan.